Hello everyone and welcome to Grantham station. Now, the time now is 07:57 on Saturday the 20th of July 2019. It's the first day of the summer holidays. And we're going to start it off with a bang by visiting London. Now, the reason I'm going to be visiting London, I know I've visited way too many times. Well, you know me. I like to visit too many places all at once, whether it is the same place or a different place. But anyways, the reason I'm visiting London is because I'm visiting a disused station on the Underground called Highgate. There's a tour going on there. Then, if we have enough time, we could be doing a few bits and bobs, including visiting Meridian Water, which is one of the newer stations on the Greater Anglia network. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. We're now just going to be waiting for our train bound for King's Cross Station in London, which should hopefully be formed of an Azuma. I think I've had enough travel on the old trains for one day. So, we'll see you when the train arrives. I'm still at Grantham station. Now, I have some rather unfortunate news. I've just been notified by a friend of mine who so happens to be from London that Meridian Water is currently closed. I think there's no weekend service at Meridian Water. So we're going to have to visit that station another time. But the Highgate visit is still going to be going on as planned. And we might do some other bits and bobs, but it depends on the service really. So that's Meridian Water out of the schedule. Very disappointing, but there's nothing we can do about it, I'm afraid. So we're still waiting for our train to London, which will hopefully be an Azuma service. The next London service is due in about a few minutes time, which isn't an Azuma service. It's either a HST or a 225 set, because it doesn't say. There you go. There you go, she's coming in now. So it's 206 on the 0818 service to King's Cross Station, London. That is not my train. I want an Azuma, not a 225. I've ridden on them quite long enough. But anyways, we're just going to wait for our London-bound service. Off goes the York service. So, let's just get this out and then we'll get the Azuma.
currently at a stand just north of Grantham Station for a unknown reason. Further updates will be given once we receive any more information. I'd like to apologise for the delay and the inconvenience caused. The train now arrived at platform number 4, EC0845, East Midlands train service for Asbolton, Bingham and Nottingham.
Well, I'm still at Grantham Station, and I'm not going anywhere at the moment because my train's been delayed by a few minutes because it's currently standing just north of Grantham. It's literally just down that way, just around the corner. But we will be updated as it happens. Not a good start, especially on another Azuma. Okay, she's finally on the move after what happened just up the line. Oh, believe it or not, this is the first LNER unit that entered service. It was 113.
Park Road, Montrose, Stonehaven and Aberdeen. This train is formed of 9 coaches.
I've now made it to London King's Cross, and behind me is 800 130, which brought me in from Grantham, and I hope you can hear me because King's Cross station is very busy and it's quite loud. Right, it's off to the tube, I think. I'm currently alongside this busy road over here, which is the A102. It is quite busy over there, as you can see. Now, over in that direction, just over on the other side of this fence and this steep hill of trees and bushes, God knows what, is a freight only line. And also just back there, just up those steps, is a foot crossing at a place called Anguston. Now, I was meant to be here to catch a freight which was going to Hither Green, but we don't know whether it's running or not because this line here doesn't have a signal. The only signal on this line is just over there, because there's a junction called Angaston Junction, which from there, this freight only line joins up with the South Eastern Main Line. So I'm going to give it until about 12:20, which is about 4 minutes. I'll give it 4 minutes. If it still doesn't show up, we'll just basically give up and just go back down into London or whatever. Now earlier I took a Thameslink from St Pancras station to Westcombe Park, and the reason being, I hope you can hear me because of the loud traffic over there from the A102. So I do apologise if you can't hear me because it's really loud. But I have no other choice, to be honest. And if you're wondering why I'm underneath an overpass, it's because it's chucking it down over there. That's British weather for you, I'm afraid. But anyways, I came from St Pancras to Westcombe Park for this reason, to come over to this freight line to hopefully catch a freight, go along that line from Angaston to Hither Green. But I don't think it's running, I think. If it's running, then it probably hasn't left because, like I said, the signal is literally just down there at Angaston Junction, where the freight line joins the South Eastern Main Line between Greenwich and Rainham. So I'm going to give it until about 12:20. Doesn't come, we'll give up and we'll go heading back into town. Because I'm also going to be doing the Woolwich Ferry if the weather improves. If not, then I don't know what else to do. I'll have to explain further at a certain station. But it really depends on the weather, because at the moment it's just rubbish. So yeah, we'll hopefully see you wherever, to be honest. Depends if this freight passes through. I need to get out of here. It's really loud.
This station is Westcombe Park.
Now made it back to St Pancras station in London. I'll explain further when we get above ground.
Yeah, living on bed, right?
as you can see, we're currently back at King's Cross Station in London. There's 700 coming in. But anyways, we're back at King's Cross Station, so I can explain what we're doing. Now, fortunately, there's another change of plan. Oh yes, there's another change of plan. Now, unfortunately, because of the amount of time we've got, unfortunately we are unable to do the what's its face, the Greenwich ferry, which I was hoping to do, but because of the British weather we always get every now and then, we have to abandon it. Because by the time we get there, the tour would have already started at Highgate. So, what I've decided to do is that I'm going to film like 1 or 2 trains here at King's Cross Station. We've already filled one in, which was a 700. So we're going to film like 1 or 2 trains here at King's Cross Station in London. Then we're going to head off, probably on the tube, I think, because, well, I've got these guys as well with me, so they're the one planning the whole thing. So what I'm predicting, I'm not sure if it's 100% true, because I need to keep on asking them, because I have no clue. We're going to go down to the underground station and get the Northern Line to a station which is a station which is near Highgate, which I think is named Highgate. It might be Highgate or it might be named something else. So let's waste no further time and get to the filming. I've now made it to Archway tube station. Just here to get a drink before we go on this tour at Highgate. So we'll see you at Highgate. We're now heading back down to Archway station after getting what we wanted, which was a drink obviously. Now the next stop will be Highgate for definite. Right, in this part of the video, I was originally going to show you the footage that I have filmed during the Highgate station tour, but that will sadly no longer happen due to a regulation regarding photography and videography on their terms of conditions. So I will leave you with a few photos that I have taken during the tour, and I'm going to explain the history of Highgate verbally. So, Highgate Station was originally constructed by the Edgware, Highgate and London Railway in the 1860s on its line from Finsbury Park Station to Edgware Station. Before the line was opened, it was purchased in July 1867 by the larger Great Northern Railway, whose main line from King's Cross Station ran through Finsbury Park on its way to Potter's Bar and the north. The station opened along with the railway to Edgware on the 22nd of August 1867. Because of the hilly terrain, the station was built in a deep cutting excavated from Highgate Hill adjacent to Archway Road. Tunnels penetrated the hillside at each end of the station, leading towards East Finchley to the north and Crouch End to the south. When built, the station had 2 side platforms with 3 tracks between them, and a station building on the south side, and a footbridge linked the 2 platforms together. A branch line was constructed from Highgate to Alexandra Palace by the Muswell Hill Railway and opened on the 24th of May 1873. The new branch split from the original route north of the station in a wide arc around Highgate Wood. The next station on the branch line when it opened was Muswell Hill, and in 1902 an intermediate station opened at Cranley Gardens. In the 1880s, the station was rebuilt with 2 tracks flanking a central island platform instead of the 2 side platforms. The island platform was accessed from a ticket office in the middle of the footbridge. In 1911, the MHR branch was taken over by the Great Northern Railway. After the 1921 Railways Act created the Big Four railway companies, the Great Northern Railway became part of the London and North Eastern Railway in 1923. At the start of the 1930s, the station had around 54 trains daily from High Barnet, 43 from Alexandra Palace, and a few through trains from Edgware. Services ran to Finsbury Park and then either King's Cross, Moorgate or Broad Street. But it didn't go to last. Following the outbreak of World War II in September 1939, works to complete the electrification of the London North Eastern Railway lines were slowed or halted. The line from Finchley Central to Edgware, or quite known as the Northern Heights, closed for reconstruction on the 11th of September 1939. Northern Line services were extended from East Finchley to High Barnet on the 14th of April 1940 and started serving the deep level platforms at Highgate on the 19th of January 1941. Though not all of the new station buildings had been completed, the surface platforms at Highgate continued to be served by the London North Eastern Railway steam trains. The deep level platforms were constructed 490 feet or 150 metres long to accommodate extra long 9-car trains, which were planned for services on the Northern Line, but never served Highgate, having been withdrawn at the start of the war. With the interchange between the London North Eastern Railway and the Northern Line, services available at Highgate from January 1941, London North Eastern Railway trains to East Finchley ended on the 2nd of March 1941, after which they operated between Finsbury Park and Alexandra Palace only. In 1942, London North Eastern Railway services through Highgate were reduced to rush hour only operations. During the war, the deep level platforms at Highgate were used, as many were, as a shelter from the bombing of London by the Luftwaffe and later V-1 and V-2 missiles. After a temporary closure between October 1951 and January 1952, British Railways, the successor to the London North Eastern Railway at the time, ended passenger services between Finsbury Park and Alexandra Palace permanently on the 3rd of July 1954. British rail freight traffic continued to pass through the station until 1964. After freight traffic ceased, the line continued to be used for occasional London Underground rolling stock transfers between Highgate Depot and the Northern City Line, with the stock being pulled over the unelectrified lines by battery locomotives. This ceased in 1970 because of the poor condition of some of the intermediate bridges, and the track was lifted through the service platforms in 1972. We're now back at Highgate Deep Level Station after the tour at the disused Highgate High Level Station. We're now going to be waiting, we're now going to be awaiting for our Northern Line train back to King's Cross. I was originally going to go up to East Finchley to have a look at the rest of the disused line, but because of time, I am unable to do it.
Northern Line. The train now approaching is to Morden via Frank. Please stand back for the platform edge.
Right, my train's coming in now, so I shall see you at King's Cross.
This train is full of acres.
Something that doesn't look right. Speak to staff or text the British Transport Police on 61016. We'll sort it. See it, say it, sort it.
I've now arrived at Tottenham Hale Station. I'm only here to change trains so I can go to Brimsdown. Now I'm going to Brimsdown to not only catch those, so yeah, not only to catch those Class 379s, but to also visit a level crossing, which is next door to the station. So that's all I've got to say really. We'll see you when the train arrives.
The bus, your bus. And we're going around this coach.
This is Meridian Water, the station we should have been visiting, but there's no weekend service. And here's Angel Road.
This is Grantham.
What are we doing here? Level crossing. I thought it was
Had a child kicking
The next train at platform 3 is the 1851 This train is called on Anchor.
No, we're in the back unit. Yeah, it shouldn't be. It should be one of the other ones.
I'm now at Liverpool Street Station in London. Now there's a sight that you don't normally see everyday life. Behind me there is an intercity set on platform 14. You don't normally get them on this side of the station. They normally appear on platforms 9 and 10. And we've also got a 317 ride operating on the Stansted Express. I hope you can hear me because this 90 is really loud. This is forming a 1925 service to Norwich. Okay. So we're now at Liverpool Street Station to do the home time plan, and that is after I've eaten. I think we're eating. Right. So after I've eaten, I'm going to take the Central Line train to Oxford Circus, then Victoria Line train to King's Cross and Pancras, and then LNER home. And then after that, I'll do the summary.
Move out of the way because the train's going in a minute.
Hang on.
Move out of the way.
Right. Then afterwards, I'll either do the summary when I get home or I'll do it tomorrow, depending if I feel like it.
Pardon? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm always getting people wondering what I'm doing. They should know what I'm doing. But yeah, after I've eaten at Liverpool Street, I'm going to get Central Line, Oxford Circus, Victoria Line, King's Cross and all that. So, I shall see you later on. I am at the subsurface station at Liverpool Street Station. Now, there's another change of plan yet again. Now, instead of taking the Central Line, like I would normally do, to Oxford Circus, and Victoria Line to King's Cross and Pancras, there's another plan, because I've just discussed it with these guys over there. I'm going to take a subsurface train, which could be Metropolitan, Hammersmith, or whatever, because it's subsurface, and take it down to Moorgate, home of the Jobsworth, surprisingly. And then at Moorgate, I'm going to change at Moorgate for the Northern Line up to King's Cross, St Pancras. Okay, so apparently it's a Metropolitan Line train, so I'm going to be taking that to I'm going to be taking that train that's just coming in now, which is a Metropolitan Line service, which for some reason it says Hammersmith City. Well, it could be either. I don't really know, to be honest. So I keep changing the thing. But yeah, I'm going to be taking that to Moorgate, change for the Northern Line to King's Cross St Pancras, and then that'll be it. I'll be on LNER home.
If you're leaving us here, please make sure you take all your personal belongings with you. Thank you for travelling with LNER.
Now I made it back to Grantham station. It is currently 21:38 in the evening. Take a look at this. There's barely anyone here, except for those couple of people over there at the main entrance. It's that time of evening when the station gets quieter and quieter by the minute, to the point where you're like the only one on the platform, and that the lights are literally going to shut off like any second. It's like the scariest part when you come to Grantham at this time of evening, when there's literally no one here, and that the lights are about to shut off like any second, and you're the only one standing on the platform. It's like the Azuma was like the last ever service apart from Grantham, and then that will be it. It will be like left abandoned. Do you ever get the feeling like you're at a station at this time of evening and something like that was going to happen? Well, anyway, we're here at Grantham. The only thing I need to do is to do the summary, which I will do at my territory, which is about 5-10 minutes away. Okay, so we're now back at my house. It is currently 15:09 on Sunday the 21st of July 2019. So it's actually a day after the London trip. But I still got to summarise what I've done, because that's the whole point of doing videos like this. So, first off, I caught an Azuma to King's Cross Station, and I really felt the acceleration as it left Grantham. I'm actually going to carry the phone just to make life easier. So, yeah, I took the Azuma down to King's Cross. Then, after I met up with UK Trains fan, who is from London, we went down to St Pancras Station low level, the Thameslink platforms. And I did say that we was going to go on the tube, because I thought we were going to go on the tube to go to Highgate. But then I realised that the Highgate tour didn't start until later on in the afternoon. So we had a bit of time to do whatever we want. So we took a Thameslink 700 to Westcombe Park, because not far from the station was London's only foot crossing. It's literally like the only one in the Greater London area. And it's on a freight-only line at Angaston, just near Sainsbury's and IKEA. Now, we went to Angaston, which is near Westcombe Park Station, to hopefully catch a freight go along the line before the foot crossing eventually closed. I don't know when it's going to close, but there was once a notice at the foot crossing letting people know that the crossing was going to close. But I don't know where it's gone. I think it got blown in the wind, for all I know. So, after about half an hour at Angaston, we eventually gave up because the freight didn't come. I had a feeling that it didn't run, because I repeatedly refreshed real-time trains loads and loads of times, and it hasn't had a report on where it is. And there weren't any signalling equipment on that line, but there was a signal just at the junction near the station, called Angaston Junction. There was a signal over there, but the problem is there wasn't any signalling equipment just near the freight yard at Angaston. So we didn't know if the freight was running or not, because it was scheduled to pass through Angaston foot crossing at 12:07. But we eventually gave up because it didn't come. We gave it until about 12:20, but then we moved on because it didn't come at that time. So we went to get some refreshments from Sainsbury's, because it was the closest one. We did go to IKEA to get some food, but the service there was just incredibly slow. There was like slow as snails. I never thought IKEA would be that slow when it comes to serving customers food, because normally they take about 5-10 minutes to make it. But it turns out this IKEA takes forever, from what I've heard from other people. So we got the refreshments from a petrol station in Sainsbury's instead. Then, after we got all that out of the way, we went back to Westcombe Park Station to get a Thameslink back to St Pancras Station. Then we went back to King's Cross to film a few trains there. I managed to catch some Azumas there as well, a couple of Azumas, one coming in from Bounds Green and one going to Leeds, because at the moment the Azumas are only limited to do one part of the East Coast Main Line, and that is the London to Leeds route. But some of them in the early morning, they come from I did catch an Azuma before I caught mine to London, which I believe was a Bradford to London service. Bradford Forster Square to King's Cross, which was operated by an Azuma. So at the moment they can only go from Hull to King's Cross, Leeds to King's Cross, and Bradford and Harrogate to King's Cross, and Skipton. I'm not sure about Skipton because the Skipton service is operated by a 91. I think that got replaced by the Azuma as well. So at the moment, it's basically the London to Hull and London to Leeds route that are operated by Azumas. The rest of them are just operated by HSTs and 225, so that the old stock could at least have some time on the other lines. Now, the reason why the Azumas are operating on the London to Leeds line and London to Hull, and maybe London to Bradford, Harrogate and Skipton, it's so that the Azumas could at least have a chance to operate in passenger service on a line on the East Coast Main Line. Which meant, well, even though the old stock do still operate to Leeds, but not a lot of them operate on that line anymore, because they're mostly getting operated by Azumas, because they're wanting to get more and more and more Azumas onto that line before they can go anywhere else. And the signalling equipment won't accept the Azuma power, because every time the Azuma would be on electric mode, it will interfere with the signalling equipment, so it's only limited to London to Leeds. Hence why there's more old stock on the London to Newcastle and Edinburgh line via York. But anyways, enough about the East Coast Main Line. We're on about London. So yeah, we went to London King's Cross to film some trains there, including 2 Azumas, one coming in from Bounds Green and one going to Leeds. Then we went on the Northern Line to Archway to get some drinks because it was stuffy in the underground. And then we went the one stop up to Highgate to do the Highgate Cemetery tour. I don't know why they call it the cemetery. I think it's because of they wanted to have a specific name for the disused station, because it is a cemetery, because it's been disused for God knows how long. It's been disused since the early 1970s, if I'm correct. The only problem was, at the Highgate tour, there was a problem concerning photography and videography. You are only allowed to use photography and videography, if I can get my words right. You can only do that for personal use only. However, I've managed to take a few photos from the tour, which you've already seen, when I was explaining the history of Highgate from start to end. So yeah, I also had a word with one of the staff members, the one in the blue high visibility shirt, and I told her that I was filming and taking pictures for my YouTube channel, but she just came around and said that it's only for personal use only, and that I'm not allowed to upload it to YouTube. So the filming, it's not in this video now. It's only like a couple of photos that I took from the tour. At least that won't harm anyone. So, got the Highgate tour out the way. Then, at the end, because we had a bit of time left, I was going to go to East Finchley to find the rest of the disused line, but we hadn't had enough time. So we went back to King's Cross on the Northern Line. And I managed to film a couple of trains at London King's Cross, which was a 700 leaving for Peterborough and an 800 leaving for Hull. Then after that, we went to Tottenham Hale to go to Brimsdown. Now, normally, we would be doing it from Liverpool Street, but there were engineering works taking place on the subsurface lines, which was the Circle, Hammersmith and City, Metropolitan and District lines. Yes, District line included, because the Circle line was totally suspended throughout. So we had to take the Victoria Line train to Tottenham Hale and change for Greater Anglia to Brimsdown, which was on the Hertford East service. And I went to Brimsdown to get 3 closures at the level crossing, which will be uploaded as separate videos. I did manage to film 2 trains when the crossing was down, because as soon as I got to the crossing, it went off on me. So I thought I'd film some trains passing through the crossing just for this documentary type video. But there are 3 separate videos at the crossing, which I will upload either before or after this video has been uploaded. So after we'd done Brimsdown, we went to Tottenham Hale to change trains to go to London Liverpool Street to hopefully get some food, but hardly anywhere had the food that we wanted to eat. At Liverpool Street, we was going to eat at the American restaurant, but noticed that it wasn't there anymore. I think it got moved to somewhere else. I was going to suggest that we would eat at the American restaurant at Euston Station, but I just didn't want to say it in case they decide to change things up, because you know what people are like. Whenever I meet up with people, they're just like, oh, let's do this and let's do that. And then if I attempt to suggest something, it mostly gets denied, but if I'm lucky enough, it gets accepted. So, yeah, we had to go back to King's Cross and eat something there, and I was literally starving. I was getting to the point where I just was about to pass out because I was really that hungry. Hence why I didn't film the time when I was at Moorgate to film a Northern Line train coming in. I think it was coming in anyway. It was already there when we arrived at the platform. And I did mention at Liverpool Street that we was going to take the Central Line to Oxford Circus and the Victoria Line to King's Cross St Pancras. But that, at the last minute, got changed by UK Trains fan, because he was the one sorting out the thing. So, instead, we took a Hammersmith and City Line train to Moorgate, because trains, well, the subway... What am I saying? The subsurface trains were still running, but they can only go as far as certain places because parts of their lines have been suspended. So they can only go limited stops. So we took a Hammersmith and City Line train to Moorgate, and we changed for the Northern Line to King's Cross and Pancras. We finally got some food at the Wasabi place, and we finished the trip with an LNER Azuma ride back to Grantham. So, hope you enjoyed this video, the second episode of my railway journey series in real life. I'm hoping to get a Roblox-sized railway journeys video soon. Now, there is some information about the Roblox-sized railway journey series. I was going to do it based on Stepford County Railway because of the new concourse boards. But because there's so many stations, I don't think I can cope with it, because there's going to be like so many parts based on the same demographic, just exploring all the stations with concourse boards. So, for my next Roblox-sized railway journeys video, it's going to be somewhere different. It's going to be on a different game. But I'm still going to start Whitney Green. But when it comes to changing trains at Stepford Central, you'll notice that I would have switched games. Because on Stepford County Railway, trains don't go to imaginary areas. It only sticks to that specific area. But for roleplay purposes, you would imagine that those made-up places are there. So anyways, that wraps up this video. You all know the normal stuff by now. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, all that usual stuff. You know what to do. And I shall see you maybe on another Roblox-sized railway journey episode. Who knows? Could be anything, knowing me. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.